Hey, third grade. So for those of you who decided you wanted to test a couple of different foods, or you chose a food and no food, just see if a worm would head towards the food, see if it made a difference, we're going to set that experiment up now. So in the previous video, collected 10 worms. You guys have so many different food combinations. I have to collect 100 worms to pull off this experiment. I'll explain why as I show you. So here we go. You'll see I have 5 buckets right now. I actually have to get 5 more buckets because you guys came up with about 10 different food combinations from the foods that I had offered to you. So here you'll see that I also cut things up really, I cut them up smaller. I'm not putting large pieces in here. So that's the orange skin. This is our lettuce, the onion, eggshells. I got them mashed up in here, and potatoes. So the soil we collected was dry, so the first thing I'm actually going to have to do is add water, and I'm going to mix it in really well so it's pretty consistent throughout. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video at this point and I'll start up again once I'm done mixing it in, because yes, mixing it in takes both hands, and then I'll have to wash up before I can handle the camera again. So it's like some of you pointed out, some of the things we do want to keep consistent is we do want to make sure that they still have moisture. We're not testing the amount of water, so we want to make sure they do have some moisture. We are also going to keep them at a pretty consistent temperature. Room temperature. I'm not going to leave them out overnight. One thing I don't want to worry about, some animals getting into our experiment, and it was getting a little chilly at nighttime a few times. So, hey, I'm going to do a quick zoom in of the worms themselves. So, right now I've got about 50 worms in there. Once I set this up, I'm going to have to get another 50. Anyway, I'll be right back with all the soil mixed up. Okay, back again. So I've added water to all of the containers. What we're going to do now is add a tablespoon of food. So things you have to think about with an experiment, to compare things, you have to be somewhat consistent with what you're doing. So we have to put the same amount of food of each type and see if that makes a difference. So here we go. I will start actually over at this end. So you'll notice I've also labeled on both ends. I'll check out the other side. So even where it says nothing, I didn't just put a blank label, I actually wrote nothing. Because for all we know, these labels might blow away, and that's how we can keep track. Another awesome thing would be if you guys were keeping a journal. That would be so cool. If you're keeping a journal, usually we do that in science class, but of course we're not in science class, but we're doing the best we can at home. And I welcome any of you to be doing the same experiment at home. Try it out, and we're going to share in Flipgrid your results. I think it'd be totally awesome, because in science we also try not to do just one experiment, but we try to do multiple experiments. I'm sorry, I'm not necessarily videotaping where I'm doing my work. Okay, so we're not going to leave the food on top. I'm just setting it on top now as we're setting things up. So I'm going to continue to go down the line, and then I'll videotape again. Okay, here we are again. We have the food sitting on top. Of course, the worms like it underneath, so we're going to push it down, pushing it back towards the outer wall. But we're going to try as best as possible to keep it all together. We don't want to spread it out even throughout this area. We just want to push it into the soil, because the worms do like it dark, so they're going to go underground to eat. But that's what we're going to do. So, as I've mentioned a couple times in this video and others, it'd be awesome if you guys can make these experiments at home, because we should compare our results. Maybe I'll get that the, worms prefer the onion over the lettuce, but maybe when you do it at home, you had just the opposite. And if we have like 6 or 7 people doing the experiment, then we should then be able to come up with something consistent, figure something out as our conclusion. Okay? So I'm going to keep pushing this in. on each one, and then I'm going to show you where we're going to place the worms. So again, I'm going to stop the videotape because you don't need to see everything. You're getting the right idea. Now, I will remind you that if you do not have worms at home, you don't feel like touching them, things like that, that's okay. I am videotaping everything so that you would be able to come up with your conclusions from the information I provide in the videotapes. But again, I offer these as opportunities for you to learn as well. Okay? Okay, so as you see, I put 10 worms right in the center of each. The worms are trying to quickly get underground. I'm not going to push them underground. I'm going to let them do that on their own. And then we will check them out. So, a few of you said we should check them every hour to see what they do. But, you know, I kind of think about that. Would you like it if someone kept nudging you, going, hey, you hungry? Hey, what do you want to eat? Every hour? I don't know, maybe some of you would like that. But we're going to do once a day. If we don't see much movement, we're going to look at every third day. I think if we waited a whole week, we might find that they've finished off the food on both sides and we don't know which one they went to first. So these are just ideas. Science is trial and error. Experiments are trial and error. You see what works, try to repeat it. See what doesn't work, fix it. Come up with something new. So that's what it is. So again, let's remember the whole purpose of these experiments is we're trying to see is if we change the environment that the worms are in, will it change their behavior? And so for this, we're testing, will they behave differently dependent upon the type of food that they're provided. So in a day, I'll be filming it again, and we will see what the results are.